All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're live. It's been a while since I've been on YouTube. It's now 9:59 in the night, so I'm going to be really short, probably 5 minutes, probably even less. Justice League's box office right now stands at $648,700,000. So it's not even 650 million yet, which is interesting. We expected it to be somewhere around 725, 730 right about now, but that has not happened. It is what it is. We kept it hopeful. We're working in the background, been doing a lot of work in the background. So it is what it is. But most people still enjoy the film when they see it, which is good. I've been, of course, many places in social media doing many different things. Very briefly, the DCU, I really love what it's doing in terms of the DC properties. Now, DC, this is going to be real quick. I'm trying to do it as fast as I can. DC is responsible for a number of properties, a number of different places in terms of distribution. But DC primarily focuses on their comics. So everything they do is at an emphasis for you to read their comics. That's not like Marvel. It's not like the other cinematic universes they have out there. There's really only one. Their focus is on that. And right now they're trying to bring unity. So what Justice League was doing is trying to bring us to the age of heroes. That is to say, bring us to the recognizable characters that you know and love of today. So Superman in Justice League was brought to that point. And if you look at Superman throughout the DC properties now, there's a uniformity to him. Of course, the thing about DC is their characters symbolize specific things. So let me just get into this real quick. Superman symbolizes, of course, hope. We all know this. But the DCEU went into that hope aspect of Superman throughout various situations, testing that hope. And that's how he's evolved to the present Superman you know is relatable and you love. When you look at other characters such as Wonder Woman, which represents love, which represents truth, Wonder Woman has evolved as well, and she's come to that character you know and love. She's in the forefront. Now, what's important to understand is that as we had the DCEU, we actually had the CW that was birthed from the DCEU. The CW, which is, of course, CBS's DC characters on a CBS channel. First one was Supergirl, but then afterwards you had Flash merging with her. Arrow was the very, very, very first one, and then Gotham came after, and then we have the Legends of Tomorrow, etc., etc. But what you have to understand is, in 2013, when Man of Steel came out, after that came Supergirl. You understand what I'm saying? Think about what I'm saying now. Now, Supergirl was supposed to flop. People were saying, oh, this pilot's not going to work, and it worked, okay? Now, from Supergirl, we got Superman. And Superman, Tom Hockland's Superman came out in Supergirl. And that Tom Hockland Superman was already an established Superman. The Superman of the DCEU took basically a trilogy, to really manifest himself as the Superman that you know. Now, the Superman that you know from the Justice League movie, he matches now Tom Hockland's Superman. He also matches the Superman that we see in the Rebirth series. And we also see the Superman in Justice League Action. It so happens that the Rebirth series started in 2016 after Batman v Superman. And then we had the Justice League Action that came out in 2016, also with the Rebirth series. And if you look at all of the different Supermen, they all look uniform in their appearance, whether it's animated Superman, whether it's TV Superman, or whether it's the DCEU Superman, or it's the Rebirth Superman. All four Superman, or should I say all four representations of Superman look the same. But however, all of these different Superman, all of these different representations of Superman are at different times in the DCEU, in the DC environments they're in. What I mean by that is, okay, so the youngest Superman of all the Superman what we look at is actually the DCEU Superman. All right, he's been around since 2013. Okay, but when we look at the Superman in Justice League Action, when we look at the Superman in the CW, when we look at the Superman in the Rebirth series, they are all established Superman. They are all older than that Superman. They're involved in different things as well. When you look at the Justice League Action Superman, he's in a Justice League that is much bigger than the Justice League that's present right now. The Justice League that's present is only 6 members, but they have room for more. Whereas the Justice League and Justice League Action involves Plastic Man, Hawk Girl. I mean, characters you have not even thought about. And some of the characters we haven't seen yet in Justice League Action, like Aquaman, we haven't seen him yet, okay? Whereas when we look at the CW Superman, which is Tom Holland's Superman, he's actually crossed over to another universe, which is very interesting. So that means he's very mature, crossed over to another universe to meet Supergirl, okay? And he's interacting with Supergirl. So we don't know. There's a lot of story to tell about Tom Holland Superman, right? And then we have the Flash. The Flash, he's, of course, Grant Gustin's Flash is much more older, much more seasoned than Ezra Miller's Flash, which is now coming on the scene, okay? When you look at Wonder Woman again, she spans, you look at the DC lore, you see Wonder Woman, she spans, again, the DC lore very nicely. She's not in the CW, but she is in Justice League Action, and she is working, and she's doing her thing. I think she has a little bit of flight as well there. She's interacting with a large amount of Justice League members as well as a large amount of villains we see there. Then we have, and we see the Suicide Squad interacting with them. We see Deadshot. We've seen Harley Quinn there. We've seen a number of them. We've seen Lex Luthor. So that's Justice League Action. When you look at the Rebirth series, you see Wonder Woman there. Again, same appearance, same look, same representation of values. When we look at Wonder Woman now in the DCEU, she's coming into her own. Now she's presenting herself to the world. These other characters have already presented themselves to the world. The world already knows them. But here, this Wonder Woman's coming out of the shadows in Justice League, presenting herself to the world. So you see that there's an evolution of the characters and a much more depth to the characters in DCEU. But that's the foundation for the Rebirth series for Justice League Action. All right? You see a Cyborg in Justice League Action. There's Cyborg in the Rebirth series. We see Cyborg actually starting to appear like the Cyborg in the Rebirth series. And I've done videos on this and all this other stuff, but it's not on YouTube because YouTube would flag my videos. I don't want to, it's much easier when I do it in the other environment I'm in. So it's very easy to just put up the videos and not have to worry about that. And it impacts the people who it needs to impact. Now let's go into when we look at, we touched on Cyborg, we touched on the Flash. Cyborg's basically been seen in Justice League Actions and Rebirth series as well as the DCEU. Flash has been in every single area. CW, that Flash is not exactly like the Rebirth Flash, but he shows a lot of similarities to him. They haven't really meshed. That Flash is not fully meshed up, and Ezra Miller's Flash is not fully meshed up with that Flash either. So the Rebirth Flash looks like Justice League Action Flash. Doesn't really look like Ezra Miller's Flash. Ezra Miller vaguely watch it like that. And Ezra Miller's Flash is much more plate-like. He looks like the Flash, but he's kind of plate-like. Yet, the Rebirth series, there's a special Rebirth series with Cyborg, the Flash, Aquaman, Batman, Wonder Woman, where they are looking like the DCEU versions. But then you see, when you go to the Rebirth comics, you see them as they would be looking. So Aquaman does not look like the Rebirth Aquaman, but there's a special issue, a variant cover, which has the Aquaman Rebirth. And if you look at even the DVDs that are going to come out with this Justice League, and even some of the posters of Justice League, they've been animated, and that's because DC is making an effort to really promote their comics. So they're trying to get it in an animated format, and the whole gear behind this show, this movie, Justice League, was to go towards that and towards the comics. CW is already promoting that. Justice League Action is already promoting the comics. Well, just short little 10-minute segments, but they've gone into all kinds of things. They've gone to Justice League Dark. They've gone into the characters. They've gone everywhere. And that's fine because Justice League Action is kind of exposing you to the DC universe. That's their goal. The CW, they're trying to expose a certain demographic, mainly families, children, into the comics, the DC comics. The DCEU is for everybody as well, children, adults, but it goes a little bit deeper and it explores the icon, the symbols of what these characters represent. So for instance, Cyborg represents the bridge between man and machine. The Flash represents the bridge between man and time. Wonder Woman represents the bridge between man and empathy and love and truth. Superman represents the hopeful and inspirational aspects of mankind. Batman represents justice. All right. Aquaman represents the relationship between man and the sea. All right. So there's these symbolisms that they are trying to actually speak to us about, all those aspects of humanity. And these characters go deeper into that. All right. Now, the DC focus, therefore, well, they've been doing it all along. Zack Snyder's been facilitating that. And that's why Chris Terrio, Zack Snyder, whoever has been a writer on this thing, Joss Whedon, they have been gearing up to bring us to the point where we see these characters that we know out there. That's what the whole point was. It wasn't about, people think that Zack Snyder's a dark brooding. No, it was always a plan. There was always a plan how to carry these characters in, because what you have to understand, Warner Brothers is not the one that called the shot. It's really DC's characters that Warner Brothers has. Just like how DC lends out their characters to Fox for Gotham, when it lends out their characters to Sci-Fi for Krypton, when they lend out their characters to the CW for Supergirl and Legends of Tomorrow and Arrow and The Flash. Okay, so they lend out the license to their characters to these different groups. Warner Brothers has a license, but really it is DC's characters. So they have to give respect and do understanding, and that's why they have a representative, Jeff Johns, who is the DCC creative CEO, who he's the guy that liaises with Warner Brothers. You understand? Okay, so DC's trying to bring everything under one umbrella, pretty much make it kind of uniformity in how they tell their stories, a cohesiveness, even though they are in different atmospheres. For instance, Krypton is going to be on Sci-Fi. It's going to be much more serious, much more grounded. Gotham's on Fox. It's much more serious, more grounded. But yet the CW is a little bit more lighter, fluffier, and so on. And they decide which characters will stay with which places, which franchise. For instance, the CW hasn't used Batman, hasn't used Wonder Woman, and it probably won't, okay, for certain reasons, because it's what they are going for. And so you have to understand what the DCU is going for a certain thing. Well, Aquaman is going to be next, and they have a specific sort of, you can tell the specific vibe off of Justice League. Then now they've kind of come full circle. They have been able to do the following. They have been able to keep their characters serious and take them seriously. They've been able to also add a little bit of levity to their characters, like a real world situation. And they're also able to still give gravity. But the difference between Justice League and all of the other movies before it is it ends on a very concise, triumphant note. Like this movie is about a triumph. And that's what Zack Snyder, Chris Terrio, all of them were going for. It's Chris Terrio saying, you know, he had to make amends for BVS, the serious tone for BVS. So this is why he went with this challenge. So the whole point behind it is now to usher in the age of heroes. Why these superheroes are, how you recognize them. You're going to basically see them as that now. So this movie was supposed to lead, just like with Return of the Jedi. And then, so we started with A New Hope, then we had The Empire Strikes Back, and then we had Return of the Jedi. This is basically Return of the Jedi. It was supposed to end triumphantly, without a doubt. And no other DCEU movie has done that, okay? You look at Man of Steel. Man of Steel ended triumphantly, sort of, but it had the sting of having to destroy General Zod, all the damage to the city, etc. It wasn't triumphant. When you look at Batman v Superman, Superman died. Yeah, they won to save the world, but he died. When you look at Suicide Squad, the prisoners went back to their cells. When you look at Wonder Woman, she ended up saving mankind in the war, but she lost Steve Trevor. All right. So the only movie where we've actually had complete triumph and everything ends on a triumphant note is Justice League. And it is the pinnacle of what they were trying to go for. Warner Bros., Zack Snyder, Deborah Snyder, Charles Roven, Chris Terrio, Joss Whedon, Jeff Johns, John Berg. This is what they were going for. All right. And I think they did a hell of a job, but it is what it is. You know, you have to control your PR. You have to control your PR. And one thing I'm doing, because we're keeping it going, is we're trying to just keep on pushing this movie. Even after this movie is finished, its box office run, we're going to keep on enlightening people about this movie. And we've been having a great impact. We had a lot of positive response concerning this movie. I'm amazed at what we had for feedback. It's not really reflecting as much in the box office as I expected it to. And that's mainly because theaters are closing down the showings of these films. So it's becoming a little bit more difficult to do this when theaters are switching to other things. But there's not much competition for Justice League for the next couple of weeks, so we'll see what happens with that. But in the meantime, I just want to give you this quick update, which was pretty short. I see some of you had some viewers and stuff, and that's good. Yeah, that's what I got to say about DC. I wanted you to know there's DC we have to really pay attention to, and Warner Brothers is just an arm of DC, and they have their creative way of putting forward what they want to put forward, but it's only one actually particular aspect to feed into DC. The whole point behind this is for people to actually read comic books. So with Wonder Woman, they're boosting their comic book sales for after Wonder Woman was higher. They're boosting their Harley Quinn sales was higher after Suicide Squad, etc., etc., etc. So, yeah, 2017, my best movie for 2017, it's no surprise to anybody, was Justice League. I've been watching that thing repeatedly, so I've had my ball and my fun, which I was happy about that. I even got a pirated copy, which is not good to say, but I had to say it. I have a pirated copy. Still don't have the Lex Luthor segment, though. And I got a couple questions for you guys, real quick. One, who are the guards that guard Lex Luthor? Who do you guys think that is? Two, let me talk about Justice League, the Atlanteans and the underground area. How did those Atlanteans get flooded by water? How did they learn to breathe water and stuff like that? Free. When I was looking at the movie, in the part with the Flash, let me ask you this one. The Flash, he scribbles all over the guy's face, but there's no lightning bolts you and I see. Why is that so? Is it because other times we see the Flash and we see huge amounts of lightning, right? So is it that, what are we seeing? Are we seeing it from Flash's perspective when we see all those lightning bolts? And are we seeing it from the other person's perspective when we don't see lightning bolts? Because obviously Bruce Wayne didn't see no lightning bolts when Flash caught his Batarang, but we saw from Flash's perspective just an explosion of stuff was going on, right? I mean, even though he moves in nanoseconds, he moves within a nanosecond. So you haven't even dreamed of moving your lips or mouth or anything, and he's moved all over the place. He's done all kinds of things, and so I can understand why you don't see bolts of lightning, because you're not even in his time space. He's in a totally different time because of the Speed Force, which seems to be some kind of electromagnetic thing. It seems to basically send the Flash in a totally different time zone to everyone else. So his muscles and everything are moving at much faster rate than everybody else. I mean, ridiculously faster, right? Anyway, except for Superman. I think about all the great moments in Justice League, but I just want to keep it to questions, like I said. There's some other questions I have with Justice League. One of them was, what exactly happened to Steppenwolf? Is he dead? We saw his headpiece come off, but is he dead? Where did he go? 5,000 years ago, he was in the Great War with mankind. He lost. Right, cool. This war wasn't 5,000 years old. So he talked about being exiled for only 1,000 years. So what happened with those 4,000 years? What was going on with him? I don't know. Fill in the blanks right there, right? And then here's another one, good one for you guys. Cyborg. Cyborg he said he had a fear about turning evil, that he would be the next great invasion. Is something going to happen with Cyborg about that? Then I got another one for you guys. Do you think Flashpoint Paradox, or Flashpoint as they call it, is going to happen? Because Aquaman talks about the war between the Amazons and the Atlanteans. And I'm like, what? There was a war between the Amazons and Atlanteans in the past? And what does that mean for Aquaman and Wonder Woman? Because she's an Amazon. I got a bunch of other questions for you guys, but in the meantime, you guys have a good one. You have a good night. I think, oh yeah, I spent more than 5 minutes. All right, I will not be able to entertain questions, but I'm gonna still check you guys out to see what you got to say, and then I'm gone. Let's see, real quick. I know I haven't been on YouTube for a long time, guys, so I apologize for that, but it is what it is. You can't always have it both ways, you know what I'm saying? So there are some people here. Sea-Dog, I don't know who this guy is. Let me see what he's in. How are you feeling about what seems to be the finishing box office of Justice League? Well, Sea-Dog, I don't know if it's the finishing box office of Justice League. We're going to see. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. We're just pushing. When we finish pushing, we'll know. But we got about 4 more weeks in the bank, so we'll see. Yeah. All right, so that's it. Sea-Dog was the last person to talk. That's all I got to say. You guys have a great one. Have a good night. God bless. Have a blessed new year. You won't see me on YouTube for a little while as I'm pushing in the background. You guys have a great one.